At a time when there are rising global tensions in Europe and the Pacific, and there is a power vacuum because of a bumbling, cognitively compromised leader in Joe Biden, seems to me absolutely mad that Australia's government should reappoint one of the wokest military chiefs, or three of them, we've had in a long time. When NATO chiefs warn that they are significantly increasing their military presence due to fears around Russia, when China continues to assert itself in its claim to the areas of the Indo-Pacific, we're too busy making our soldiers and fighting forces focus on, what pronouns or how they identify or whatever it is, or to make the military a place of inclusion and diversity. Because, of course, the last thing we want from our service is, to feel underrepresented when they're being shot at overseas. Joining me now is Liberal Senator and retired Major General Jim Moll. And Jim, always great to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, Rowan, thank you. I'm broadcasting from a different room in my house this time, from the dining room. Normally I come to you from the study. So anything could happen, Rowan.
Exactly, and there's a nice echo. It must be a nice large dining room. I haven't had dinner at your house, Jim, but I'm picturing a beautiful dining room, and I'm sure the food is spectacular. But anyway, let's get down to nuts and bolts here. The ADF under Angus Campbell, lovely man, etc. I'm sure, but I'm not interested in the human beings. I'm interested in the roles. Strikes me as we have prioritised woke agendas and leftist touchy-feely policies at the same time that defence procurement has become a laughingstock. So do you agree with Albanese's decision to keep the same mob at the top of defence?
Well, let me answer that by talking about the theory first, then the reality. And I'd say that if I had my way and we weren't facing the kind of strategic environment that you've been talking about, I would change everyone now. But the theory is that you either change the chiefs of the three services and leave the CDF and the Vice CDF and the Chief of Joint Operations in place, so that should something happen, you have experience to handle it going into the future, which is pretty well what's happened now. Or alternatively, you keep the three chiefs of the three services and you change the Chief of Joint Operations, the Vice Chief of the Defence Force and the Chief of the Defence Force. Now, I've got a question for you, really, and it might go to illustrate the point I'm trying to make, and that is, who runs the Defence Force? I spent 40 years of my life, Rowan, in the Defence Force, and I was never quite sure who ran the Defence Force. The answer has got to be the government runs the Defence Force. And I've said for years and years and years, I've said it publicly, I've said it internally within our own party, that we, the government, must run the Defence Force. But in order to do that, Rowan, you've got to know something about defence. And if you don't know anything about defence, you are lost. All you can do on day one of becoming the minister or being the Prime Minister is say, OK, CDF and Secretary, tell me what I should tell you. And this is what we've faced for years. Now, Dutton could do it. This is the quite unique thing that Peter Dutton had, being a man of institutions and a man of a disciplined service in his life. He understood that you have to give specific direction. And guess what? When he took the chiefs on and blew the chiefs or the department away, the soldiers absolutely loved it. And the result that we've got over many, many years, is that we've got a Defence Force at the moment which is a one-shot Defence Force. Rowan, it would last for days in a serious war at the most. We've got a Defence Force which lacks lethality. That is, it's not nasty enough. It hasn't got missiles that can reach out and smash things. It's not sustainable, which means that it can't fight for long enough, and it lacks mass. There's not enough of them. Put all that together, and really in this case, it doesn't matter who you sack or who you keep, but the government has got to say, we didn't have a strategy, but Peter Dutton came close to getting it.
Well, of course, Richard Marles, Labor seems to have embarked while Anthony Albanese's away. We've got Chris Bowen and Richard Marles, everyone rushing around like headless chooks, blaming everything on the coalition government, of which you were a member, obviously. Richard Marles is saying that under the coalition, you had the worst failures in defence procurement. So he's talking about, I guess, the new subs and the new missiles and the new tanks, etc., etc. Would you agree with that?
Well, the first advice that I received when we went into opposition, Rowan, was that every day you will be humiliated as a member of the opposition, and every day you can sit back and watch government rewrite history. No, I don't agree with that. But I do agree, and in fact I agree so much I have written a book about it. I've written a book which is available for purchase now called Danger on Our Doorsteps, and it'll be in the bookshops on the 3rd of August. But it talks about the next war. Rowan, this is like saying the Department of Health is really doing well, but if only we could get rid of all the patients. The Department of Defence is doing a great job if we could just get rid of the concept of war. And war is what we're all about. It's what the Defence Force has got to focus on. It can then go off and do Gucci deployments to Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever else you like. And we do that brilliantly in the Defence Force, absolutely brilliantly. But if the government wants us to do anything else, this government or any other government, they've got to come up with a strategy. Now, I vote, so I, as a voter, should be able to see 95% of that strategy. They should come out like the Americans do with a national defence strategy which goes out to the people as well as going from an administration to a defence force. So this is where we've got it wrong. Governments are bamboozled by the Department of Defence and by the ADF, so it doesn't really matter who you get rid of. What the government needs to know before it goes into government, it's got to understand what the Defence Force is all about. And right now, exactly as you said at the start, the Defence Force is about winning the next war.
Now, we've talked about subs before, and I'm sure subs will feature in your book, and I can't wait for your book to come out. That'll be terrific, Jim. Tom Lewis writes in The Spectator, in fact, I had him here on the Bolt Report the other evening, saying that we could actually get nuclear subs before 2030 in an arrangement with the Americans as they come off the assembly line and basically work closely with the Americans to set up an industry here. What's your take on Tom Lewis's idea there, and your take on the AUKUS and the subs?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the submarines that we will get from AUKUS, and AUKUS is a great arrangement in itself, and it's much more than subs. The nuclear submarines that we may get in 10 or 20 years are long-range things that we should really be working towards. This is an example of a mistake we're making. We're saying to ourselves, OK, we've got 6 submarines. Of those 6 submarines, we can put 2 to sea. They take a very long time getting from A to B. They don't carry many torpedoes or missiles compared to modern nuclear submarines or ships. But let's buy a third lot of submarines. We're only just maintaining our first lot, which are the Collins. We're looking out 20 years to buy nuclear submarines. Why don't we dash out and buy an interim submarine? You don't. This is the problem. We've got to think about what a submarine does. What's a submarine does? It sinks ships. It closes straits. It inserts special forces. It conducts intelligence work, and it hides from the enemy so the enemy doesn't know where it is. And in the case of the nuclear submarine, a nuclear submarine takes 20 years to get. The point that I make is that you can find other things. What else sinks ships? Aeroplanes with missiles sink ships. Trucks with missiles on the back, on the land, sink ships. Who else? All of those functions that a submarine performs, Rowan, can be performed by other things. And that's the key thing. And guess what? In all those other things, we could get them much, much faster. If we've got a gap in our capabilities, then don't necessarily concentrate on submarines. Concentrate on other ways of doing it. But you've got to understand, mate, you've got to understand what war we are preparing for. It just so happens my book provides the answer to that.
I can't wait to read it. And I'm going to take a wild guess.
Absolutely.
But Jim Molan, Senator Jim Molan, thanks so much for your time. You know, if the subs are invisible, maybe we just say we've got some subs down there. Who's going to know we don't? There you go. Just my bit of contribution there. Senator Jim Molan, thanks so much for your time.